Level 1. The network. You run 8 crews across 4 zones, and you haven't spoken directly to a crew member in 18 months. That's a structure, not an accident. Each crew knows a pickup point, a drop point, and one number. That number reaches Marcus. Marcus reaches you. Nobody in Zone 2 knows anyone in Zone 3. Nobody at street level knows your name in any context that attaches to this. You designed it that way before the operation was big enough to need designing, because you understood early that visibility is the variable you can actually control. Marcus has run the street layer since before there was a street layer worth running. He doesn't need a brief anymore. A crew goes quiet, he finds out why. A route gets friction, he reroutes it. He handles what needs handling, so you're never the one handling it directly. Cash moves separately from product. Always. The 2 streams never touch in the same location on the same day. The counting happens in a unit off the industrial strip. 3 people, rotating. They move locations every 5 weeks. They don't see each other outside of the count, and they don't need to. They know their job is to count accurately and say nothing. The ones who've asked questions about anything beyond their own count didn't come back for the next rotation. Word got around without anyone having to say it directly. The operation runs on a fixed cycle. Same timing, same handoffs, same windows every run. People assume that's a vulnerability, that a pattern makes you predictable and predictability makes you catchable. It doesn't work that way. What makes you catchable is deviation. Deviation means something changed. Something changed means someone improvised. Improvisation is where mistakes happen, and mistakes in this business cost money at the low end and cost something much harder to replace at the high end. You don't improvise. Your crews don't improvise. Marcus doesn't improvise. You built the schedule so nobody ever has to. By every measure that matters, the operation works. Except Miguel. Miguel is your supplier. He sits 1 layer below the cartel and controls your access to the product. He takes his percentage. Then he takes a little more on top. Not enough to call a meeting over. Just enough that you see it every cycle. A shipment expected at 40 units arrives at 36. A delivery scheduled for a Tuesday shows up Friday. He calls it supply slippage. He says plan for it. He says it like that's a business answer and not just a habit he's developed because nobody has made planning around him painful enough yet. You've been covering his shortfalls for 22 months. He charges as though your options are limited. For 22 months they have been. The cartel doesn't negotiate directly with operators at your scale. Miguel is the route. Cut Miguel, and the supply goes with him. So you take the shortfalls and run the operation within the constraints he puts on it. Then something changes. Word moves through this business the same way product does, below the surface, slowly, and only to people who are already paying attention. What you're hearing is that the cartel has started cutting out the middleman layer, making direct arrangements with operators who can show volume and consistency over time. You can show both. You've been showing both for long enough that the numbers aren't hypothetical anymore. You sit with Marcus in the back office one evening with the numbers laid out. What the operation clears now. What it clears without Miguel's percentage on top. What it looks like if the shortfalls stop happening and the supply comes in on schedule at the volume you actually ordered. The third column is what this becomes with direct supply, proper volume, consistent timing, no one taking off the top before the product reaches you. It's a different number. Not a better version of what you have now. A different category of operation. Marcus looks at it for a while. He's been with you long enough that he doesn't need to talk through every number out loud. He sees what you see. You tell him you've already made contact. He looks up. You tell him a meeting is being set. 3 days later, Miguel calls. Another delay. 5 weeks this time, he says. Not 3, not 4. 5. Supply issues upstream. These things happen, he says. Build in contingency. You tell him that's fine. You mean it. In 5 weeks, it won't matter what Miguel does or doesn't do. The operation moves on with him or without him. You've made sure of that. Level 2. The front. You open one restaurant. Fast food. A chain unit on a strip that does steady lunch and dinner volume and nobody looks at twice. You hire Elena to manage it. She's sharp, runs a tight floor, doesn't miss things. She knows it's a business. She doesn't know what it's for. 1 location becomes 3 inside 6 months. 3 becomes 7. 7 becomes 12. Every location runs clean. Health scores posted in every window. Staff uniforms pressed. Customer service tracked weekly. Not because you care about customer service. Because a restaurant with complaints draws inspectors. Inspectors ask questions. Questions cost more than good service costs. The restaurants generate real revenue. That's not incidental. That's the function. Real revenue means real deposits. Real deposits mean money entering the banking system as income from a legitimate food business with a payroll, a supplier network, and a 3-year filing history. The street money goes in at one end. Clean money comes out the other. The channel between them is 12 fast food locations and Elena's management. The cleaning company comes 18 months after the first restaurant. Commercial contracts. Office buildings, retail chains, a hospital, 2 hotels. Overnight crews rotating through. Nobody questions a cleaning van in a car park before dawn. That's just what cleaning companies do. You run 3 depots. The third one, east side, set back off the main route, has a room on the lower level that doesn't appear on any plans filed with the city. You built it after the last inspection. Nobody's been in that space who wasn't supposed to be in it. The crew that runs the East Depot are your people, selected by Marcus, not connected to the restaurant side. Elena has never been near the place. She manages customer-facing operations. The depots are logistics. Logistics isn't her area. That space is where the product is processed. The cleaning vans leaving before 5 a.m. aren't carrying cleaning supplies. They're carrying the output to the distribution points Marcus runs. By the time the restaurant locations open at 11, the product is already in the system. You are now, on paper, an employer, a taxpayer, a local business owner who gets invited to things. 13 employees at the first location alone, 60-something across the chain. You pay into a payroll system every fortnight. You have a company accountant. You have a business insurance policy that renews in March. You speak at a chamber event in the spring. Panel discussion, 40 people in the room. Topic is scaling an operations-led business. You say things that are accurate. You take questions. A man who runs a regional logistics firm asks how you manage quality control across multiple locations, and you give him an answer that is completely true and has nothing to do with what you actually manage quality across. You cut a ribbon at a restaurant opening. Someone takes a photograph. It runs in a local business publication. Your name is in the caption. You look like what the photograph says you are. Marcus is still in the same back office he's been in since before the restaurants existed. Same routes, same crew leads, same schedule. He hasn't been to a single opening. The street operation hasn't changed. What's changed is everything around it. 1 city, 2 operations, no intersections. The restaurant staff don't know the street side exists. The street crews have no connection to the restaurants. The money is the only thing that crosses over, and it crosses over through accounts, and it comes out clean. You designed it so that if either side gets looked at, it doesn't reach the other. The wall between them is structural. You built it in. That's the point of all of it. The cartel meeting gets confirmed on a Thursday. Date, city, a name to ask for at the desk. You tell Elena you're traveling for a week to assess expansion into a new region. She asks if there's anything she needs to handle while you're away. You tell her the 13th location opening is 3 weeks out, and the prep schedule is set. She says she'll take it from there. You book the flight. Mexico. Hotel under a clean name. A city you haven't been to before. A contact name waiting at the front desk. The meeting you started working toward the night, you laid the numbers out with Marcus and looked at what the operation becomes without a middleman between you and the source. The 13th location opens while you're in the air. Elena sends a photo. The score in the window is a 94. You close it and go to the hotel. Level 3. The Cartel. The room has no windows. Carlos sits across from you with a glass of water he doesn't touch. He listens to your numbers without interrupting. When you finish, he asks one question. Can you move this volume every month? Reliably. You say yes. He nods once. That's the agreement. No contract. No handshake. The nod is what there is. You both understand it. You fly back the next morning. The difference between what the operation was and what it becomes after that meeting is the difference between a supplier who schemes and delays and one who delivers exactly what was ordered, on time, at a price that makes every previous number look like a draft. The product arrives when it's supposed to. The volume is what you asked for. Miguel doesn't call anymore because there's nothing left for Miguel to call about. Within 6 months, the volume has tripled. This is what direct supply actually means. Not just a better price. A different operating capacity. The routes Marcus runs can move more product because there's more product to move. The processing sites run longer hours. The cleaning vans go out more often. The East Depot expands. A second processing site opens inside a warehouse attached to one of the restaurant supply chains, a building that exists on paper as cold storage for a legitimate distribution company that you own through 3 layers of holding entity. Nobody who works the warehouse knows what the cold storage is for. Nobody who knows what it's for works the warehouse. Marcus now runs 3 cities. He doesn't need more direction from you than he ever did. The operation scaled because it was built to scale. He just extended the same structure outward. $50 million a month. That's the number after the cartel deal settles. Not revenue. Not gross. The number that lands on your side after everything else is paid. Carlos doesn't check in often. When he does, it's a single message. Numbers. No context. No greeting. You respond in kind. The relationship works because neither of you needs it to be anything more than what it is. He provides. You move. That's the arrangement. What you didn't negotiate, because it wasn't on the table in that windowless room, is everything the cartel considers implicit in the arrangement. Territory is theirs to define. Competitors are yours to handle. The expectation isn't written down anywhere. It doesn't need to be. You started to understand this around month 3, when a message came through that wasn't a question and wasn't a request. A rival operation had moved into 2 of Marcus's distribution routes. You told Marcus to deal with it through pressure. Shut off access, redirect the supply, make the route unprofitable for them. Don't touch anyone. What came back wasn't what you said. 2 people were dead. The routes were clear. Marcus said it was the only outcome that held. You didn't argue. You didn't ask for more detail. You let the call end, and you sat with what you'd stepped into for a long time before you moved on to the next thing. That's the version of this you're running now. A month later, Carlos sends a message with a number in it. Just a number. Double the usual. Not a request. An acknowledgement. A bonus, delivered the way Carlos delivers everything, without explanation, because the explanation is obvious and both of you know it. The operation is the most productive the cartel has run through this region. Ever. You are not someone who depends on them for access anymore. They depend on you for output. That's a different position from the one you were in when you were paying Miguel for product that arrived short and late. What you don't know, what you have no way of knowing, is that a federal task force opened a case file on the operation 14 weeks ago. Not because of the processing sites or the cleaning company. Because a wire transaction moved through an account in a way that flagged a pattern. The account was 6 layers removed from anything with your name on it. It flagged anyway. They've been working outward from that flag ever since. They're patient. They're not in a hurry. They don't need to be. The operation is running at $50 million a month, and it's not going anywhere on its own. Neither are they. You are the most valuable target in a 4-state investigation. You just don't know it yet. Level 4. The Ghost. Everything is at its peak. You notice the car first. Parked outside the East Depot 2 days running. Different spot each time, but the same model, same color. Then a new face at one of the restaurant locations. Not eating, not working, just present. 3 times across a week. Different table. Same face. Marcus says you're reading patterns into noise. You've been doing this long enough to know the difference between noise and something that isn't noise. The people who can't tell the difference between those 2 things aren't in this business anymore. Then Ray calls. You stare at the number for a few seconds before you answer it. Not because you don't recognize it. Because you do. He calls on a number that isn't connected to any part of the operation. A number from before. Before the restaurants. Before Marcus. Before any version of this that exists on paper. A number from a period of your life that doesn't appear in any document filed under any of your names. You haven't spoken to Ray in years. You remember exactly when the last time was, and what it was about, and neither of those things has anything to do with what you're running now. He doesn't ask for money. He doesn't say anything about the operation or anything connected to it. He says he needs to meet. That's all he says. He sounds like someone who has already done something and is calling about the aftermath of it, not about whether to do it. You agree to meet. You shouldn't. You already know that when you say it. You say it anyway because Ray knowing your number means Ray already has the leverage, and refusing the meeting doesn't change that. Ray met with federal investigators 8 weeks ago. Not because he was caught. He walked in, made an appointment, gave them your name, your actual name, the one that predates every company, every LLC, every photograph in a local business paper. He gave them a name attached to a face attached to a specific history that none of your paper trail was ever going to show up in. The investigators aren't building a drugs case. They can't build a drugs case from Ray. Ray doesn't know the operation. What they have is an identity case. The gap between who you are on paper and who Ray says you actually are. They've been working backward from that gap ever since he walked out of that building. Every company, every holding entity, every account, traced outward from the person Ray described. The car outside the depot. The face at the restaurant. Those are the edges of a net that's been tightening for 8 weeks while you've been running at 50 million a month and thinking the risk is somewhere else. You know what a closing window looks like. You've made a living out of recognizing them on other people's operations, and you're looking at one now, and it has your name on it. You call Marcus. You don't explain. You don't tell him about Ray or the investigators or the car or the face. You tell him the number for the account, the one he's known existed for years but never needed to ask about. You tell him it's his now. The operation, the routes, the crew leads, the arrangement with Carlos. All of it. He doesn't ask many questions. He asks one. You tell him you'll be in touch when you can be. You don't say goodbye. Goodbye means something went wrong. This isn't wrong. This is the exit you built into the structure before any of this was worth building. You always knew there was a version where you'd have to walk out clean and leave everything behind you running. You built for that version from the start. You just hoped you'd never have to use it. You leave before they come. The restaurants keep running. Elena opens the 13th location the following week. She sends a photo. The frontage looks good. The staff looks sharp. You don't respond. Not because you can't. Because that version of you, the employer, the taxpayer, the business owner who shook hands at the chamber event, doesn't exist anymore. You made sure it doesn't exist. The name is still on the paperwork. The person isn't anywhere. You're alive. The version of you that existed, the one with the name on the contracts, the ribbon cuttings, the LinkedIn profile, the photograph in the local paper, is gone. That's the only thing left.